Hey folks, Steve here with another Dark Valley video. I realize it's been some time since the last video was uploaded. Um, Obviously that was due to some convention fun and also just busy times otherwise with the family and doing stuff there, and probably not getting as much content out this week as I would have liked, just other stuff going on in life, and couldn't get to record yesterday. And I'm hopefully going to get some of this recorded today, maybe get one video out this week, which is one less than I, at my peak scheduling, would normally do. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. So this is the start of Operation Bagration. Last video we did the setup and we sort of talked through some of that stuff here. And as usual, looking around at the map and trying to figure out, did I place all the units in the right places? We're up here, don't have a lot of strength, it's going to hold the line. Trying to pick spots to exploit and put a lot of force power in so that we can, break through down here and try to get to the important places over here, or kind of cut through the Pripyat marshes with some high movement factor units to try to get up and around, all that kind of stuff. Just trying to work through the strategic nature of setup is important, and we'll see how it all plays out. So yeah, this is turn 34. This is the start, I believe, with the setup, instructions. All the reinforcements and replacements for that have been set up as required, so I don't need to do anything there. And let's see. So and right away, this turn is going to start with the action phase, I believe. Yeah, the first activation round. And the Soviet player actually gets to pick the first two chits for the turn, which is something special. I think if you're playing the full campaign game uninterrupted, you would not have this, where the Soviets just get to pick two beginning chits. I think this is just representing, like, hey, this is a major offensive, and it lucked out that they got the first two chits. If you were kind of looking at it from a non-game standpoint, it's like they got the first two chits. I don't know, however which way you want to look at it. So we need to figure out what the chits even are. So if we're looking at, let's see, June 1944, this is where the chit recipe gets harder for the Axis, and way better for our Soviet forces here, the Soviet side. So let's see. Let me grab. I've got to find all the chits now because I've been moving them around. I might need to take myself off camera just to grab all the stuff that I need to grab here, to get all the chits and talk to them like usual. So, gosh, I'm feeling a little rusty, guys. I'm feeling a little rusty. That's okay. So we'll be right back, and I'll show the chit recipe for the turn. Well, it turns out I had all the chits in Crimea, and I didn't see it because it had been like a couple weeks since I'd looked at the map. So here's what we got. All right, we got logistics, obvious. For the Axis, we have move, and these are just the move. They're not the or chits. So it's move or combat whenever it comes up. So the Axis won't have a choice. Their freedom of operational capability is restricted, and they get to pick one panzer. And I picked the 4th Panzer. That is the Panzer HQ that is near Lvov and in front of the Carpathian Mountains there, sort of, east of Upper Silesia, basically, because that's going to be a really critical part of the front due to the flat terrain, and the Soviets wanting to exploit that and create a lot of trouble for the Axis there. So I think that's the best option as the Axis is to defend with that HQ. Otherwise, we have our Stavka marker as usual. I don't actually have anything in Stavka. I guess since the Soviets set up last, I could optionally take some other stuff and put it in Stavka Reserve. But I think where I have everything is where I want it. I don't know. This is one of those funny things, right? You got to make a decision of what do you put in Stavka Reserve, and I've historically just said I'm not putting much in Stavka Reserve. Maybe I'm just going to correct myself now. I'm going to put a force of a guard tank army and 2 tank corps in the reserve box, and that will be our Stavka Reserve. I'm a little cautious of that because I had some of these guys situated where they could make some movement after combat, or like a movement chant after combat through any holes we busted, but maybe it's better to have them in Stavka Reserve for flexibility. I don't know. All right, so anyway, the next thing I want to look at is these chits here for the Soviets are the ore chits. So it's like a reverse of what we experienced before, where depending on what comes up and when, the Soviets can decide how they want those chits to go. And then finally we have deep battle, and we've seen that before. Basically, our HQs will activate more units, and they'll do some potential combat and move, and that could get us pretty far along, right? So you can imagine, if I'm just looking around like Lvov, it could be, we do combat, move. If we're managing to take the city somehow, I'm not sure we'll be able to do that, but if we were able to do that, we could do, I'm trying to think how I want to look at this, like combat, move, deep battle, then move, and then we can use Stavka if we captured Lvov to potentially leap out of there and cause some trouble. That would be interesting. I think if we look at the strategic situation on the map, basically anywhere along the line where the Axis takes a hard hit is going to cause a major collapse of the front. And it's just going to be where and how that happens, and what can be done to then send the forces racing to those victory point cities, because we need to grab those. But pretty much every turn from here on out is just good for the Soviets, more or less. There's like one turn where the Axis gets some capability there, but we're going to be dealing with a pretty straightforward stomp to the west, hopefully, and capture the needed victory point cities for victory. So I need to decide out of those chits down here which are going to be our first two, and I'm thinking maybe it's something like combat and deep battle, or maybe deep battle and combat, but it's going to be some version of that, and I'll need to decide. I don't know if I need to decide now. It says the Soviet player may choose the first 2 action rounds, both Soviet. All remaining go into the cut. So I guess I have to decide them now, which 2 are going to be the first 2. So deep battle, that would allow combat, then move after combat, and then more combat, leaving movement and Stavka left over. I don't know. I'll have to think about this, and when we come back, I'll have made that decision, and we'll start executing. Okay, I'm just showing the choices I've made. So I am going with deep battle and then regular combat, and why I want to do that. Here's my thinking, and if Ted Racer's watching, or others who are watching, want to share their opinion, they're free to do so. I'm thinking, okay, deep battle, right? We're going to get, with our HQs, some general combat, and we should be able to smash some frontline Axis units and start creating some holes. Then we're going to move after that, which will allow our forces to either create better positioning for more combat, or even surge further ahead to seize rail lines and that sort of thing. And then follow that up with more combat, so whatever combats we can set up for ourselves after the first combat round will further break apart the holes in the line and tear it, apart. Um, and as I'm thinking, like, think about as you're swimming, right? You're putting your hands forward and you're spreading them out. We want to keep forcing out, out, out to open up the gates of the line. And then when we eventually get Soviet movement, and maybe we'd get Soviet movement right afterwards if we're that lucky, we can try then to surge through the openings that we've created, and seize more important towns and whatnot, and then maybe even play Stavka then and do it even more, so that by the time the Axis can get to their chits, they've been rendered incapable of being able to do much with those chits to actually salvage the situation. So we're front loading our activity, hopefully, to the point where the Axis simply can't react properly to what we're doing. That's the idea anyway. The dice are going to tell us how it really plays out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the HQ activation for Stavka. Now, because this is turn 34, we actually get the benefit of activating both HQs. So Stavka over here and Zhukov down here will all get to activate. This is different than previous turns as we played through the game, where you have to pick one. Now, I think it's from here to the end of the game. Yeah, from here to the end of the game, it's both HQs activate each time. Or if I only want to activate one, I can just choose one. But I'm not sure I would ever do that. So, yeah, we'll get into it. So I'm going to put a cut here. When I return, I'll show the aftermath of the combat and then move of the deep battle chit to talk about what occurred and what we'll aim to do with then the combat chit, and then we'll do that. So see you in just a second. Okay, so here we are after deep battle. Now, something I was thinking about here is, after I had rolled all the dice, I was like, man, this would have been great if this was just our combat roll, and not deep battle, because then we can make better use of the movement. But we didn't know we were going to roll not as great as maybe we could have. So what sucks is like that we had combat, we actually made some gains here to the Soviets, but we didn't make, in my opinion, we didn't create enough opportunities to actually move well and move far with the post-combat move of deep battle. And so whatever gains a deep battle gives us feels like I kind of screwed that up a little bit. But I don't know. It's just the way that how I arranged the chits. If I had made it a regular combat chit first, then I'd be feeling even better. But I made it deep battle first, thinking I could make exploits better. Now, the next bout of combat might prove to still be very, very good, and that I made decent decisions. But here, I feel like maybe I screwed up. But let's talk very quickly about where I made gains. So down in the south here, we've got the Axis on just the east edge here are hurting, and they're going to lose traction here very soon. We made an advance here, we made an advance here, and actually with the Zoks the way they are, these units will be isolated on supply check. And we're buttoned up against the critical rail line here. And it's not a huge issue yet, because they're counting back to a safe, a safe place where the supply marker is. None of these units are really in danger yet, but we're applying the right amount of pressure, I think, and taking that hex there. We're working, and it's creating a good situation for the next combat shit. So down in the south over here in Romania, I think we're doing okay. Now in the critical sector here, and again, because the HQ activated, it's really just units around here that had activity. We were hopefully going to make a really great gain here, because if I had knocked these guys out, I would have been able to move, and there's a lack of Zoks here right now that I could have squeezed on through here, but I didn't quite get what I needed. It was just some BL1. Over here we had some retreats, and my artillery did some damage, but not as much as I was hoping they would. I think I hit like a third of the time, which is what it is on the dice, more or less, or close to it, so I don't know. We didn't get as far as I would have wanted to, honestly. So we did gain a hex. We were hurting their line, and we're going to be able to hit it again, but just not quite to the degree that I wanted to. But we're inflicting step losses on the axis, and I guess that's really the important thing. We're dealing enough. We actually did a fair number of armor hits across this segment of the line. So we're going to wear the axis out. I think we're okay there. So basic takeaway is I think I might have been able to do better. I didn't, or I felt like I didn't. But what's really going to matter here is the next combat chit. So the post-combat movement was pretty straightforward, not much to celebrate. But now we're going to have general combat all along the line. This is something that the Soviets really didn't get much of in previous turns. If I look at the chit recipe, they really never had. This is the first turn that they've really had a general combat chit. So this is their opportunity now, all along the line, even up here in the north. We can conduct combats and continue to wear out the Axis to the point that they're going to have no choice but to further retreat or get encircled or whatever. So I'm going to take myself off camera. We're going to conduct the regular combat all along the line, and we'll see if we make any major advancements as the Soviets. Again, not too worried about taking a lot of hexes deeper into the territory. Let's just continue to wail on the front line and make the Axis too brittle to handle what will be coming in future turns. So we'll be right back. Okay, so after the general combat, we took a step out of Pskov, there south of that lake, and I say that lake, I can't remember the name of that lake, sorry. Did well there. Further down, we took a hex right here and made an advance, and that's good. We're thinning out the line there. We even managed to actually force out a pretty strong roll on Axis units here, and we've opened up a path through the swamp, so to speak, to encircle some guys, or just put the Axis forces maybe in a pullback position now, because whatever holding positions they have in the swamp or the marshes there, Pripyat marshes, it's going to be unsustainable here very shortly, and we'll be pushing to the other side of them over there in the northern sector. So that was good. Down here, we have just punished the Axis. I mean, again, I feel like we've missed some opportunities to move after, to really advance with a move after combat with the deep battle, where we could be potentially pushing up against the city of Lvov. But we eliminated a pretty great number of steps on the Axis this turn. I think it's more than what they can replenish, I think, with their reinforcements or the replacements they're going to get. And we've made some gains there. So I think what's really going to be interesting to see what chit comes out of the cup next, because that's going to determine where and how the Axis can operate. Particularly, you can see we knocked some stuff loose. We've caused some retreats. The Axis line here hasn't totally disintegrated, but I think we've already gotten into a place where it's going to be very hard for the Axis to hold the position there in the flat space, and all that artillery is just, I had much better artillery rolls this chit, and that really helped clear some of the terrain of defense factors when it came to the eventual combats. Now down below here in the Romanian sector, you can see we did make some advancements across the river. This guy's going to be isolated if logistics is checked. These guys are going to be isolated. Now, when the Axis move comes up, they're going to emergency withdrawal, obviously. But still, I mean, I think we're forcing the right activity here, and we're going to start to just put too much pressure on is what I think is going to end up happening here. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But overall, I think this turn we did good as the Soviets so far in just taking Axis step losses. But the turn's not over yet. We're going to go to the cup, and we're going to pull it, and we're going to see what's going to happen here. I don't think it makes sense to use Stavka here yet. We just don't have a clear opening to use it well yet. So I'm going to wait to see what happens in the next couple of chits, and then we'll figure things out from there. All right, so we pull Soviet move. All right, well, that's as good as we could have hoped, I guess, from this perspective. We get to do Soviet move. The moves are going to be pretty straightforward, I think. I don't see much reason to do anything crazy, right? We're going to get some stuff moved up, moved around, maybe pull some injured guys back, but we're going to make use of this to create problems for our buddies here on the Axis side. So I'm going to take care of the Soviet move, and when we come back, we'll pull more chits or decide if we want to use Stavka. So I'll be right back. Okay, here we are after Soviet movement. This is actually my second take of this clip because as I was covering the movement, I deleted this clip, by the way. I was like, oh, I might play Stavka here, and then I realized I really couldn't because it's really an issue of it is really an issue of stacking, and I couldn't quite do the thing that I was thinking about doing, but now I think I have a different way of doing it. So we'll figure it out here in just a moment. So not a whole lot of crazy movement up here that I could do. Over here, just to zoom in on the Pripyat marshes, because we had forced out some guys, we are able now to kind of push our way through the marshes. Those units are all in supply because of the rail line connection, so we're just putting pressure, and the screening access units aren't going to be able to do the job for much longer, and it's going to force the Axis to retreat. Would love to get for even further up here, but I don't think these cavalry units and these weaker armies would be able to take Minsk by itself. Maybe if we got all the way up there and be in supply, we could do something. So we'll have to see what the Axis can do to stop that from occurring, but I think we're okay for now. Moving over here, we're butting up against Zok, so we're just kind of moving forward, trying to project power. We do have hexes next to Lvov, so that's going to be, next turn's big offensive is to ensure we can capture that city, and that will be a new reinforcement link that we can project power from further west, inching closer to Silesia. And then down here, you can see we managed to get through the line. We actually have a number of, I didn't notice it before, but we've got some isolation over here, and over here, and over here, and we actually, for I think the first time I've managed to use this, Guard Tank Army infiltration movement to just wrap around this guy a little bit more. That unit will still be able to emergency withdrawal away down here, but I like having this guy being able to threaten a little bit more of the rail line down here. He has less movement points he has to spend to get down there, and I think we want to that's how you cut off those guys right there. Because just to show the supply situation is, supplies coming out of here up these rail lines, and if you cut the rail line here, even if there's a supply depot right there, I think it is, it can't trace supply if you cut this rail line. And so what's really important is if we can get down here, and some of these units can't trace back to a rail line themselves appropriately, then I have to double check the supply rules. I mean, I guess the point is I do want to cut these rail lines. I do want to cause some problems because otherwise it's Carpathian Mountains up through some of the rail passes that are over here. So I think I'm doing what I need to do so far as the Soviets. We're taking good action in the right theaters, and we're putting that pressure on. Here, I don't, because the Axis move is going to be coming up, I don't think I'm going to be able to trap these guys for, fully. They're going to be able to emergency withdrawal, but if we can catch them with a logistics chit, that'll at least make them out of supply and easier to attack in the next turn. So we'll have to see how it plays out. I'll also point out that the Axis has the modal chit that they could opt to use, but once they use it, it's gone, and I'm not sure I want to use it yet. I think the Axis still has an opportunity to retreat. We might need to save it for a while. And I don't think, I'm just not sure if it's worth using Stavka here yet. We might be able to do something where they can get off a late attack, because right now there's no more Soviet activities in the Cup. So if we save Stavka towards the end of the turn, we can maybe do a late attack that we otherwise would normally be able to have performed. Right now I could go down here and attack. I could come into Cernauti, come down, and potentially attack down here and remove a unit, which would be great. But I don't know I don't know if it's worth it yet. We want to hold it for now and see if there's something else we can do. So I'm going to go to the cup, and we're going to pull the next chit, and we get the 4th Panzer activation. So this is going to be around down here around Lvov. It's either going to be combat and movement or movement and combat. I don't know that combat's going to do much for us in either case, and now that we've eliminated so many units around the HQ, they might not even be able to activate many units. So the Axis are going to have to use this to scramble and figure out how to stay in good shape over here. They're going to have a hard time doing it. So I'm going to take care of this 4th Panzer activation, and we'll be back. Okay, well, the 4th Panzer activation is complete, and all I really did was pull back some of these units and try to create a weak line here, but one that is looking to hold Lvov as long as possible, because we really just need that to be. If we lose Lvov as the Axis, it just gives the Soviets another reinforcement city further ahead, and is a great launching off point for things like Stavka Reserve or what have you to kind of burst out and spring forward towards Krakow or Warsaw or Brest-Litovsk to cut off potential units. So I think as the Axis, I kind of need to hold Lvov for a while, if at all possible. And I need to start railing some units down here to help cover the open line because it is weak. But, the Soviets concentrated their power there, so that's to be expected. We're going to pull the next chit. And it is, it is Axis move. So the Axis units down in the south are going to be able to get away without losing their supply status. So this is going to take some time. I need to think through things. I think a lot of these guys have to pull back. That's just going to happen. And I'm going to have to pull these guys up and around if I can, and try to, get away from the mountains and just sort of try to defend somewhere. And these guys are going to have to pull back somehow. So a lot of activity for this Axis move of trying to just pull back and get something going. So we'll be back when I've completed those movement. Okay, Axis move is complete. Sorry, we're a little tilted here. Let me see if I can fix that. There we go. Still a little tilted, but let me see if I can fix that for you guys. There we go. I don't want to give you vertigo. So movement's tough because I pull a few units back to get them on rail lines so that I can rail them down south from up here. Pulled back in a few places. It's kind of tough because there's only so much movement that those units can actually perform. And I don't know. It's pretty tough, right? And the problem will be if I retreat from the lake, that's just more hexes that I may have to cover and defend at. And so trying to figure out how can I pull back and do it safely, I'm not sure about. So it wasn't a huge retreat. I think what I maybe will need to do is get these guys somehow pulled down over here and have that be the new line, or pull down far enough that we hold Riga at a line here somehow. But it's going to be tough to pull back that way and keep a steady line. And I'm just not sure how I'm going to be able to operate and do that. It'll give up some cities, but at this point, survivability is the more important thing. Down here, there wasn't much I could do other than to start to pull back to get away there. Same thing down here. I could start to retreat into the mountains a little bit. And down here, a lot of trouble here. There's not many places I could go. And with Soviet Zoks where they're at, we had to pull back. We're sort of contracting down here, contracting like this because the emergency withdrawal only allows us to go certain ways. So I think, sure enough, the Soviets are going to swing down here and just be beaten on the Axis forces. They're going to swing through Bucharest, and then they'll be heading into the rest of Hungary with the fall of Romania, and you can see a big old dead pile that's been accruing. So, yeah, that's a tough one. We're going to pull the next chit, and it kind of doesn't really matter what these chits are. I'm pulling the Axis Combat chit now. I'm reasonably confident that there are no combats worth conducting. If I take a look around at what's out there, I don't think there's really anywhere that I can get anywhere near the odds of it being worthwhile to attack. I really don't think I'm going to have really anywhere. There's maybe one place, I guess. There's like one place over here that might be worth attacking at, maybe somewhere along this line, just to hurt some of the thinned out Soviet units. So I'll take myself off camera just for a quick minute just to see if anything up there is worthwhile. And then the final chit is going to be logistics. And the Soviets did not catch the Axis here. They're going to be okay on supply. But I guess the only other thing that we can opt to do is do we do we try to make something happen with Stavka before the logistics chit comes up? I guess that's the other thing. Before I pulled combat, was there any point in doing that? So we'll let logistics go last maybe, and we'll throw Stavka chit here, and what'll really matter is whether or not it's valuable. So let me see what the Axis combats will be like, and then we'll see if there's anywhere that makes sense to launch a Stavka maneuver, and we'll take it from there. So we'll be right back. Okay, to speak swiftly to it, we did Stavka. So the Axis did not do any combats. The best they could hope for is maybe a 2-to-1 odds, but unfortunately that would be just more likely to cause step losses to the Axis, and they can't afford that. So really, no combat for the Axis. And with Stavka, what I did was that I activated, I placed them in Cernati, a guard tank army and 2 guard tank corps. I raced them down this way, and they were able to attack a reduced 2-strength armor unit that was in front of, that's my phone blowing up, in front of the supply marker, and they managed to do a BL1, so they did take a hit on the guard tank army, but now we're sitting here and we're helping to project a pretty fair amount of Zoc action into that hex with the supply marker, and I'm not sure, like when it comes to tracing supply, how this is going to work. Phone's still blowing up. If the units can trace to that supply marker, even though there's a Zoc covering the supply marker, and I'll have to double check how the rail lines match, because some of these units could count to the railway is fine. But I have to double check the Axis supply method when we're in Axis territory, because just as a reminder, we are now actually in Axis territory. We're technically in Romania. We're getting awfully close to being in Greater Germany, or what used to be Poland. So we're going to have to keep an eye on some of the special rules regarding that. There are some rules around, I think, it might be Romania, that if Romania falls, then we get some Soviet Romanian units. So I'll have to double check some of these rules. It's going to start mattering now that we have a lot of units in Romania. Some special rules I'm going to have to double check. So we're going to do logistics next, but because of this whole little situation here, I'm going to want to double check the supply rules and the Romanian surrender rules. So I'm going to put a cut here. We're about at the end of the turn, but I want to make sure I validate that before we continue on to just ending the video. So we'll be back. Okay, so for the immediate supply question, it doesn't really matter for the depot. The depot is going to move here shortly anyhow. And I am right. If we're talking about rail hexes that are west of the 1941 start line, the country borders, then those rail hexes, as long as they lead to the west map edge in Germany, which means they got to trace all the way around here because Hungary is technically not Germany, then they're in supply. They can use that rail line as a supply source. So as we push the Axis back into their own territory, the supply depots really won't matter anymore, and it'll be more about tracing supply, much like the Soviets have been tracing supply the entire game up to this point. Now, I did read the Romanian surrender rule. So they'll switch sides. There are three conditions that need to be fulfilled. One is that there are 20 or more Soviet non-artillery steps in Romania. Now, I did a quick check, and to count Romania here, I think we're counting from the start line here. So it's like from here to here is Romania. That this is not Romania over here technically. And I think I did a count, and it's like 1, 2, 3. It's not 20. You need 20 steps, but we're not. Great, I'm just moving this stuff around. I'm not at 20, that's for sure. But I'm not far away either. It's like 3, 4, 5, 11, 13, 16. I mean, we're pretty close, but we're not quite. But it'll be that way at the end of next turn. Almost certainly we'll have 20 or more. The Soviets need to control 2 towns or cities in Romania. So we have one, Roman, which is here, and I guess this would be the next one that we would look at. I'm trying to see if there was anything else that we already marched over, but it won't take us long. Now, I'm pretty sure the game doesn't consider Bessarabia Romania. So it's just, I think, in this territory here. So we're not quite there yet, but it won't take us long to take Galatz, and that'll fulfill that condition. We only need one more town, and then the Soviets control Odessa and Sevastopol, which they do. And if they do surrender or switch sides, we remove all the Axis Romanian units. All German units in Romania are immediately adjudged as out of supply. Romanian BP hexes immediately become Soviet-controlled unless occupied by an Axis unit, and the Soviet-Romanian armies enter next turn. And then we would also get Bulgarian reinforcements at that point. But it's at the end phase, so probably what's going to happen here is next turn we're going to continue to apply pressure here, and the Romanians are going to switch sides. The Axis may get cleaned up over here, and then we'll start swinging through Bucharest and Plotsy. I'm not sure how to say that. Plosti. And then we'll have our ability to sweep up this way. And to be honest, I don't think the Axis is going to have much capability to hold us back at that point. We'll be streaming through, knocking stuff out, taking Buda, and then Vienna, Prague, and then heading up, I guess, north towards Berlin that way. I guess we head up this way. These guys are heading this way. It really might not matter that we have stuff up here. It'll just get to the point where we're flooding the zone with too many Soviet units, and Germany won't be able to deal with it. Once we step our first step hex into Germany itself, the region with the label of Germany, they do get some emergency reinforcements or replacements or something like that. It's not a lot, but it may help hold the line longer as we get through this. So I think that is the end of the turn here. I think we're still sitting at 21 victory points. I don't think we had any exchange victory points this turn. But obviously a lot's going to start changing here. The Romanians are going to fall. We'll get the Bulgarians in the war. And the Hungarians are going to start falling apart here before too long. And everything will start driving towards the end game. So I think that's it, yeah, for turn 34. Thanks for watching. Glad to be recording again. We'll try to do more than I did next week than I did this week. We'll see how it goes. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. And I'm starting to try to figure out what is going to be the game I look at next in decent depth. I've got a couple ideas going around. We'll be thinking on it. I know there's folks who want to see Nevsky, Nations in Arms, a whole lot of other stuff. I'm covering what I can. So see you in the next one, guys. Take care and keep on gaming.